Next, we're going to talk about some different types of evolution. Those are convergent evolution, divergent evolution, coevolution, and punctuated equilibrium. Okay. So let's look at convergent. Okay. Starts with co. Co means together. So what's going on with convergent evolution is that species are becoming more alike as they evolve. Now think about animals in the sea. They all have that streamlined kind of torpedo shape that makes them more like aerodynamic, except through the water. I guess water dynamic makes them be able to go smoothly through the water. Dolphins and whales and fish have that same shape to slide through the water. I also think about in plants, down toward the floor of the rainforest, where there's a thick canopy, so very little sunlight gets through. So down lower in the rainforest, all the plants there are going to have really, really huge leaves, which is an adaptation to help them catch that little bit of sunlight that's coming through because they need it for photosynthesis. So maybe as the canopy started closing in, earlier there were plants that had smaller leaves, but as the canopy started closing in, as those trees grew and the canopy started closing in, less and less sunlight got through. Those with the smaller leaves would die, and the ones with the larger leaves would survive and produce seeds and make more plants with the larger leaves. They may not be the same kind of plants. Maybe you had a flowery plant over here that had some small leaves, but it got larger leaves. Maybe you had an ivy over here. Some had smaller and some had larger. You have to have that variation. And then that lack of sunlight chose for the ones in each species that had the bigger leaves. So eventually you end up with a bunch of plants, not of the same species, but they look a lot alike. They all have those same big leaves to catch the sunlight. That is convergent evolution. They become more and more alike because they're adapting to the same environment. Okay. Coming together. Convergent. They come together to be more alike. Okay. Divergent. Okay. Means two, so I think about divergent, splitting into two. In divergent evolution, well, the most obvious example of divergent evolution that I think of is when Darwin went to the Galapagos. On each island, he found finches that had different kinds of beaks. They had all started from the same kind of finch that looked a lot alike, but because there were different types of food on each island, the finches had chosen that. Natural selection has selected for the bird that was most suited to that environment. Okay, so if they were on an island that they had mostly seeds to eat, then they would have these shorter, thicker, seed-breaking kind of beaks. If they were on the island that they had to reach into holes and pull bugs out, then they would have the longer, more tweezery kind of beaks. So that was divergent. They all started out as the same kind of finches, but as they adapted to different environments, they became more different. Divergent, different. They become more different. That would be divergent evolution. Okay, coevolution. Again, co means together. In this case, coevolution means they're evolving together. Okay. Think about a plant. There's a certain bug that eats this plant. So over time, there has to be some variation in that plant. And maybe there's a type, maybe there's a plant, some of the plants have a feature, an adaptation that makes them poisonous to that certain bug. Okay, so the bugs are going to end up eating more of the plant that's not poisonous, so that population is going to decrease, but then the plant that's poisonous to that bug, the bug's going to learn to stay away from it. Okay, so as the bug learns to stay away from it, then you're going to get more and more of that plant that's poisonous to the bug. It's going to survive, and it's going to produce seeds, and it's going to grow more plants that are poisonous to the bug. So eventually the population is going to shift toward that plant that the bugs are not able to eat. Well, as that happens, if the bugs end up eating all the ones that they can't eat, then the bugs are going to have a problem. They're going to start running out of food. So then maybe you have some variation that develops within that bug population where there's maybe a few bugs that are able to eat. They're immune to the poison in the plant. So then they are able to go over there and eat the poisonous plant because they are immune to that poison. So then the environment's going to start selecting for that bug. Now that they've eaten all the ones that they were able to eat, the ones that can't eat the poisonous plant are going to start dying off. The ones that had that variation, that mutation, that adaptation that made it okay to eat that poisonous plant, well, they're going to survive and they're going to have offspring that are going to be able to eat the plant. And they're going to survive and have offspring that are able to eat the plant. So eventually the population is going to shift. You get that shift in the population to where you're going to have more of the bugs that are able to eat the plant. So they have evolved together. The plant evolved to become poisonous to the bug, and the bug that's immune to the poison, the bug population evolved to shift toward the bugs that have that variation of being able to eat that poisonous plant. So that is coevolution. They've evolved together. They went from a mostly non-poisonous plant to mostly bugs that can only eat the non-poisonous plant. And they shifted over to more of the poisonous plant. And then the bug had to also shift to being able to eat the poisonous plant. So coevolution, they evolved together. Okay, punctuated equilibrium. Most times when we think about evolution, we think about it being a long, slow process. It takes time to have offspring that adapt, more offspring that adapt. So for those changes, it takes time. Well, punctuated equilibrium is an idea. The change happens quickly. We get a little punctuated period of change. And then we go into an equilibrium where things don't stay steady for a while. There's not any evolution happening. Things are not really changing. And then you get another spurt of punctuated change. I think about exclamation point when I think about the punctuated equilibrium. So it's a burst of change, and then equilibrium, where it's a calm period without change. Then another burst of change. Okay. Now look at the first couple of these, and let's see if we can figure out what they are. Okay. So in the ocean surrounding Antarctica, there are fish that survive cold water by using molecules made of glycoproteins that circulate in the blood to keep it from freezing. It's kind of like natural antifreeze. Certain kinds of worms that live in the Arctic Ocean also make antifreeze proteins that help them live in icy waters. Okay, so we have fish and we have worms. Two different species, but they have both developed a similarity. They become more alike because they live in a similar environment. So become more alike. They're coming together. They are converging. That's what we call convergent evolution. So that first one would be convergent evolution. Convergent. Okay. Next we have ants are the correct size and weight needed to open the flower of the peony plant. Okay. They fit just right with each other. The ants are the perfect size to open the peony. The peony plant provides food for the ant, and the ant fertilizes the peony flower. Okay, so what happened over time was only the ants that are able to get into the peony and get food have survived. And only the peony that are able to be opened up by the plants that are able to be fertilized and make seeds. So they have evolved these traits together. And a lot of times we will see a symbiotic relationship during coevolution. They evolve together. Coevolution.